22 broken bones before turning 10. A boy who should not have survived. Bones that bend like green branches in the wind. The healers say he will die before his first winter. His father, Ragnar Lothbrok, the most feared Viking in Scandinavia, looks at his newborn son and sees something no one else can see. He does not see weakness. He sees pure fury concentrated in a fragile body that defies every law of nature. The year is 832 AD. On the coasts of what we now call Denmark, a woman named Aslo gives birth amid screams that pierce the wooden walls. The midwives recoil when they see the baby. His legs will not support him. His bones seem made of soft wax. They whisper forbidden words among themselves, malforation curse of the gods. His presence fills the space like a contained storm. He takes the child in his enormous arms with a delicacy no one would expect from a man who has plundered half of England. The baby does not cry. His blue eyes stare fixedly at his father with unnatural intensity. Ragnar smiles, a terrible smile that makes the midwives lower their gaze to the fur-covered floor. They name him Ivar the Boneless in Old Norse. The name is an insult turned into identity. But this boy who should die will transform that insult into the most terrifying war cry the British Isles will ever hear, because the disability of his body will become the deadliest advantage any Viking warrior has ever possessed. Ivar's brothers grow strong and tall like oaks. Bjorn Ironside develops muscles like stones beneath his tan skin. Abi moves with the grace of a hungry wolf. Sigurd's snake in the eye practices with the bow until his arrows can pierce a shield at 100 paces. They all learn to walk, run, jump. Ivar watches them from the ground where he remains seated motionless as a wooden statue. But while his brothers train origins, the unusual son of Ragnar their bodies, Ivar trains something far more dangerous. His mind spends hours listening to the skalds, the ancient poets who memorize sagas of past generations. He learns every battle Ragnar has fought, every strategy that worked, every mistake that cost lives. He memorizes trade routes, political alliances, the hidden weaknesses of every jarl from Norway to Denmark. His brain becomes an arsenal. By age 8, Ivar can already verbally dismantle any grown man. His tongue cuts deeper than any sword forged in the smithies of Kattegat. Ragnar's warriors learn to fear him as much as they respect him, because Ivar has a sinister gift for finding each man's secret insecurity and driving it home like a knife between the ribs. No one dares mock his legs after he publicly humiliates 3 seasoned warriors. Ragnar watches his son's development with growing fascination. He knows he has fathered something unique. The other boys may become good warriors, perhaps even respectable jarls. But Ivar will be different. He will be the kind of leader men follow into death without questions, the kind of enemy who keeps Christian kings awake during the dark, long winter nights of Britain. The decisive moment comes when Ivar turns 11. Ragnar gathers his sons in the great hall of Kattegat. Torches cast dancing shadows on walls decorated with shields captured in battle. Ragnar presents them with a simple but brutal challenge. They must plan a raid against a fortified monastery in Northumbria. The son, whose plan is best, will lead the next real expedition alongside his legendary father. Bjorn proposes a frontal assault with battering rams and ladders brute force against stone. Abi suggests a night attack using darkness and surprise. Sig speaks of besieging the place until hunger forces surrender. All solid plans executed 1,000 times before by 1,000 generations of Vikings who plundered these Christian coasts for over a century without rest. Then Ivar speaks. His voice is quiet, but each word falls like a stone into still water. "We will not attack the monastery," he says. "We will let them come to us." The men in the hall exchange confused glances. Ragnar leans forward on his carved wooden throne. His eyes shine with the same fire that burns in the torches. Continue, he orders his son, and Ivar unfolds his plan with the Boneless. Curse, or battlefield nickname, precision of a master skald reciting an ancient saga. They will send messengers to the villages near the monastery. They will say a small group of Vikings shipwrecked on the coast, only 20 men without supplies or heavy weapons. The Christian monks, always eager to prove their piety and gain favor with their god, will organize a rescue expedition to capture these vulnerable pagans and convert them. But when the monks and their armed guards arrive at the coast, they will find not 20 starving men, but 200 Viking warriors hidden in the surrounding forests. The Christians will be trapped between sea and sword. Their best fighters will be far from the monastery. The defenses will be almost empty. Then the real Viking army will strike the monastery from the opposite side. They will take it without losing a single man on the defensive walls. Absolute silence fills the great hall. The warriors process what they have just heard. This is not merely a military plan. It is a perfect psychological trap. It uses Christian beliefs against them, turning their supposed virtue into their most exploitable weakness. Ragnar Lothbrok slams his fist against the arm of his throne. The wood cracks under the impact. The sound echoes like contained thunder between walls too narrow. Ivar will lead that raid, Ragnar declares. Protests erupt immediately. The older brothers argue. Experienced warriors object. How can a crippled child command a raid? How will he even reach the ships? How will he maintain the respect of men who have killed since before he was born? Turning weakness into ruthless strength, Ragnar raises one enormous hand and silence falls again like snow on a frozen graveyard. They will build a special shield for Ivar, not an ordinary shield held with the left arm, while the right wields a sword. This shield will be a mobile platform with reinforced iron-rimmed wooden wheels. Ivar will sit upon it like a Jarl on his throne. 4 men will drag him into battle using thick hemp ropes braided as thick as a human wrist. From that elevated position he will direct the battle with full view of the field. The smiths of Cartagat work for 7 days and 7 nights without rest. The constant hammering of hot metal on anvil becomes the heartbeat of the entire settlement. They forge something that never existed before. In Viking history, a personal war chariot designed specifically to transform a man's greatest weakness into his most distinctive and memorable feature. When finished, the construction is a brutal masterpiece of primitive yet effective Nordic engineering. The shield chariot is circular, 2 m in diameter. The surface is covered with hardened ox, leather reinforced with crossing iron bands forming geometric patterns. In the center sits a cushioned seat of wolf pelts where Ivar can sit cross-legged. 4 iron rings welded to the edges allow the drag ropes to attach. The wheels are small but sturdy, made of solid oak with metal rims. Ivar tests his new mobile thrown on the training fields outside Cartaget. Warriors pull the ropes while he sits in the center, directing movements with precise hand gestures. Left, right, advance, stop, turn. The men quickly learn to interpret each signal as if they were extensions of Ivar's brain. But Ivar refuses to be merely transported like inert cargo. He demands weapons designed for his unique combat position. The smiths create spears with extra long shafts he can throw from his elevated height, perfectly balanced hand axes for short-range throwing. A composite bow he can shoot while seated. Every weapon is calibrated to compensate for his lack of mobility with deadly reach and precision. Weeks pass and Ivar trains relentlessly. His upper body develops until it becomes gross-qually muscular in contrast to his useless legs. His arms can break wooden boards with a single blow. He can crawl across the ground using only his hands faster than many men can run. He develops a pain tolerance bordering on the inhuman. Warriors see him crawl over broken glass during training without emitting a single groan. The time comes to sail for Northumbria. 15 long ships depart Carthaget with sails spread catching the north wind. Ragnar Lothbrok travels on the lead ship alongside Ivar and his older brothers. The sea is restless but navigable. Waves strike the wooden hulls, producing that rhythmic sound every Viking knows from childhood, the sound of adventure, plunder, glory waiting beyond the gray horizon. During the crossing, Ivar studies maps drawn on cured sheep skin. He memorizes every bay, every river, every point where the commander of the Great Heathen Army British coast is vulnerable to quick landings. His brothers practice swordplay on deck. Ivar practices something different. He practices reading faces. He observes every warrior on the ships. He identifies who is loyal, who is ambitious, who will follow orders without question, who will need to be controlled through fear or calculated manipulation. They land on a black sand beach 3 days later. The ships are dragged ashore with that rasping sound of wood against stone, announcing the arrival of the men from the north. Vikings leap into knee-deep cold water and begin unloading supplies. Ivar is lowered onto his shield chariot with ceremonial care. His feet never touch the salt water. He is already seated on his throne when the first scouts return with information about the target monastery. The plan unfolds exactly as Ivar designed it weeks earlier in Carthaget's Great Hall. Viking messengers disguised as peaceful Nordic traders approach nearby villages. They tell elaborate stories of shipwrecked companions needing Christian aid. The fearful but faith-bound villagers carry the news to the monastery of Lindisfarne. The abbot, a man named Bert, calls an emergency council to decide what to do with these apparently vulnerable pagans. The trap is set. The monks of Lindisfarne, together with 40 Saxon warriors, armed with spears and shields, march toward the coast, where the supposedly shipwrecked Vikings wait. They carry chains to bind the prisoners. They bring priests to begin immediate conversions. They carry a dangerous arrogance born of believing their Christian God will protect them from any danger. While they perform their pious and merciful work, they walk straight into their own annihilation. When they reach the indicated beach, they indeed find 20 Vikings waiting by a small bonfire. The Saxons advance confidently, chains jingle in their hands, then the surrounding forest explodes into movement. 200 Viking warriors emerge like wolves from hidden burrows. The Nordic war cry tears the British afternoon air with pure acoustic violence. The massacre lasts less than 20 minutes. The Saxons are completely surrounded with no chance of escape or proper defensive formation. They try to regroup, but panic consumes them. Some run into the sea and drown in the desperate attempt to swim nowhere. Others fall with Viking axes buried in their skulls. Abbot Esbert dies with a frozen look of surprise on his face as his blood soaks his white monastic robes until they turn dark crimson. While this carnage unfolds on the beach, Ivar leads the second group of warriors toward the now undefended monastery. His shield chariot rolls along the dirt road with its carriers running at full attack speed. Ivar advances like an impossible figure, a crippled boy leading seasoned warriors into plunder. The remaining monks at Lindis hear the thunder of his arrival and barricade themselves in the main chapel, praying fervently for miracles that will not come. The monastery doors are solid, but not designed to withstand brutal campaigns that reshaped England, a determined Viking assault. Warriors use a tree trunk as an improvised battering ram. They strike once, twice, 3 times against the reinforced wood. Iron hinges groan. On the 4th blow, the doors burst inward in an explosion of splinters and dust. Vikings flood the inner courtyard, howling like beasts released from cages, kept too small for too long. Ivar enters the monastery on his shield chariot, like a conquering emperor entering a defeated city. The remaining monks kneel in the chapel with hands clasped in desperate prayer. Their voices recite Latin psalms that echo against cold stone walls. Ivar observes the scene with an impassive expression. He feels neither compassion nor cruelty. He feels clinical curiosity about these strange creatures who worship a god nailed to wood. He orders his men to separate the monks into two groups, the old and sick to the left, the young and strong to the right. Vikings obey, dragging the religious by their dark habits. Some monks weep, others maintain trembling but continuous prayers. Ivar points to the right group. These will live, he declares. They will be sold as slaves in Dublin's markets, where they will fetch good prices for being literate and trained in administrative work. The left group receives swift death. Viking axes fall with brutal efficiency. There is no torture, no unnecessary prolongation of suffering. Ivar does not enjoy violence for its own sake. He sees it as a practical tool to achieve specific objectives. Bodies fall onto the chapel's stone floor. Blood runs between cracks, forming small crimson rivers that flow toward drains where normally only rain water collects. The monastery's treasures are considerable gold chalices decorated with precious stone inlays. Illuminated manuscripts with elaborate illustrations that took years to complete. Silver reliquaries containing fragments of bones from saints dead for centuries. Tapestries embroidered with golden thread depicting biblical scenes. Vikings pack everything methodically. They do not destroy for destruction's sake. Every object has value in Scandinavian markets, where these Christian artifacts are considered fascinating, exotic curiosities. But Ivar finds something more valuable than gold. In the monastery library, he discovers parchments containing detailed maps of all Northumbria, trade routes, locations of other equally rich monasteries, Saxon fortresses with legacy and mystery. Legend beyond the grave annotations on the number of stationed warriors. The monks have meticulously documented their own kingdom, never imagining this information would fall into enemy hands. Ivar rolls these parchments with almost reverent care and stores them in a sealed leather tube. The complete sack of Lindisfarne takes 3 days. Vikings establish a temporary camp within the monastery walls. They eat the stored food. They sleep in the monks' cells. Some get drunk on communion wine found in oak barrels in the underground cellars. Ivar does not drink. He keeps his mind clear, observing everything mentally, noting which warriors maintain discipline and which become useless when alcohol floods their systems. Ragnar Lothbrok arrives on the 3rd day after securing the coastal area. He enters the monastery and finds his 11-year-old son seated on the former abbot's throne. Ivar has organized the loot into piles categorized by value and portability. He has personally interrogated every surviving monk, extracting information about Saxon defenses in the region. He has established efficient guard shifts to prevent surprise counterattacks. Ragnar looks at his 11-year-old son and sees something that fills him simultaneously with pride and indefinable apprehension. The return voyage to Kattegat is triumphant. The 15 long ships sail heavy with treasure and slaves. Vikings sing victory songs heard miles away over dark waves. Ivar stands at the prow of the lead ship, watching the horizon where gray sky meets even grayer sea. His mind is no longer in Lindisfarne. He is already planning the next raid, the next conquest, the next step on a ladder only he can see in its entirety. In Kattegat, news of his success spreads like fire through dry forest. The crippled boy, who should not have survived his first winter, has led one of the most successful raids in years. Skalds begin composing songs about Ivar the Boneless. Stories grow exaggerated with each retelling. They say he can kill a man with a single look. They say the gods took his legs to compensate for giving him a brain too powerful for a normal body. The following years transform from child prodigy to genuine military leader. By age 15, he has participated in 12 successful raids. By 18, he commands his own independent fleets. His reputation grows to near mythic proportions. Saxons learn to fear the name Ivar as much as they feared Ragnar. But while Ragnar was predictable in his direct ferocity, Ivar is unpredictable. He attacks from unexpected angles using tactics no one anticipates until it is too late. In the year 8056, Ragnar Lothbrok decides to undertake his most ambitious raid. He plans to strike directly at Wessex, the most powerful Saxon kingdom in all England. King Ælla of Northumbria has fortified his coasts after decades of Viking attacks. But Ragnar believes that with enough ships and warriors, he can break these defenses and plunder the rich inland cities. It is a bold plan that could make him the most legendary Viking who ever lived. Ivar warns against this raid. He has studied the maps stolen from Lindisfarne. He has interrogated enough Saxon slaves to understand Wessex's true military strength. He knows the coastal defenses are only the first layer. Inland wait Saxon armies trained specifically to counter Viking tactics. Ragnar is walking into a trap, but Ragnar Lothbrok is old now and needs one final glory before death claims him. Father and son argue for hours in Carthaget's great hall. The tension between them is palpable, like electricity before a storm. Ragnar argues that audacity has always worked. Ivar counters with cold numbers and tactical analysis. Neither convinces the other. Finally, Ragnar makes his decision. He will go to Wessex with or without Ivar's support. It is his destiny, he declares. The gods call him to perform this last impossible feat that will cement his name in eternity. Ivar lets his father depart with only 2 ships and 120 warriors. It is a ridiculously small force for the proposed task. Ragnar knows it, everyone knows it, but there is something suicidal about this expedition that fascinates the Vikings. The idea of dying gloriously in battle against impossible odds holds more appeal than living additional years in boring peace. Ivar does not share this romanticism. He prefers victory over glory. He prefers survival over heroic death. Weeks pass without news, then months. Finally, a Saxon ship arrives with ambassadors from King Ælla. They bring a message and proof. The message is simple. Ragnar Lothbrok is captured. He will be publicly executed in York within a month. The proof is a gold ring Ragnar always wore, a ring Ivar recognizes immediately. His father is in enemy hands awaiting a death the Saxons will make as humiliating and painful as possible. The Saxon ambassadors await a response in Carthaget's great hall. They are 3 men dressed in fine clothes that contrast with the surrounding Viking rusticity. The delegation leader is a noble named Wulfhere, a middle-aged man with battle scars crossing his face like maps of old wars. He speaks rudimentary Norse learned over years of trade and conflict with northern invaders. His message is clear and calculated to provoke exactly the desired reaction. King Ælla offers clemency if Ragnar's sons swear never again to attack Saxon lands. Ragnar will be released and may die at home among his people. But if they reject this offer, Ragnar will die in the snake pit, a traditional Saxon death reserved for the worst criminals. Hundreds of venomous vipers will bite him simultaneously. His agony will last hours as the poison destroys his body from within. Wulfhere describes these details with barely contained pleasure shining in his cold gray eyes. Bjorn Ironside leaps forward with hand on sword hilt. Sig remains still, but his clenched jaw reveals the inner storm consuming him. The 3 older brothers want to kill these Saxon ambassadors right here. Turn the great hall into a slaughterhouse. Send their heads back to Ælla as the definitive answer to his insulting and humiliating offer. Ivar raises one hand. The gesture is small, but his authority stops his brothers dead. No one moves. No one breathes. The entire hall awaits his reaction. Eva stares at Wulfhere for long seconds, stretched like bowstrings, pulled to maximum tension. Then he speaks in a voice so calm it forces everyone to lean forward to hear each word, loaded with hidden meaning and veiled threat. "Tell your king we accept his terms," says Ivar. The brothers explode in immediate protest. Björn shouts betrayal. Uber accuses Ivar of cowardice. Sigurd simply glares with evident contempt. Warriors in the hall murmur among themselves, confused and horrified. Ragnar, Lothbrok's son, will surrender without fighting. The Viking, who never lost a battle, will simply abandon his father to the most humiliating death imaginable. This contradicts everything their culture stands for. But Ivar ignores the protests. He continues speaking directly to Wulfhere with that same unnatural calm. "We will swear peace upon the sacred rings according to Nordic tradition. We will never again attack Northumbria or Wessex. Our ships will avoid Saxon coasts as though cursed by the gods themselves. We will release all Saxon slaves in our possession as a gesture of goodwill." Wulfhere smiles, satisfied. He has achieved the impossible. He has bent Viking pride through simple, calculated, well-executed intimidation. The Saxon ambassadors depart the next day with a message of surrender. Their ships disappear over the sea horizon, carrying what they believe is a historic diplomatic victory. The Saxons will celebrate. King Ælla will boast of having broken Viking power without even raising a sword. He will execute Ragnar as a warning to future invaders. Christian chronicles will record this moment as the beginning of the end of the Norse threat over Christian and civilized England. But as soon as the Saxons are out of sight, Eva summons his brothers to a private meeting. The four lock themselves in the council room where Ragnar once planned his campaigns. The walls are decorated with maps and captured weapons. The initial silence is thick with unspoken accusations. Bjorn speaks first. His voice drips venom. "How could you?" he asks. "How could you condemn our father to that death without honor or glory?" Ivar smiles, not a happy smile, but something far darker, an expression that makes even Bjorn involuntarily step back half a pace. "Father is already dead," says Ivar. "Nothing we do will change that. Ælla will execute him no matter what we answer. Our only choice is how to use his death. We can die avenging him stupidly like impulsive warriors, or we can turn his martyrdom into the fuel that will ignite the total conquest of all England down to its Christian foundations." The brothers listen as Eva unfolds his true plan. Yes, they will swear peace. Yes, they will release slaves. They will make every concession the Saxons demand. They will appear completely defeated and tamed. The Saxons will lower their guard. Coastal defenses will relax. Armies will disperse. England will breathe relieved, believing the Viking threat has finally ended after decades of constant terror. Then they will strike with a force never before seen on these islands. But it will not be merely a plundering raid. It will be total conquest invasion, and Ivar will send messengers to every Yale in Scandinavia. He will tell them of the humiliating death of Ragnar Lothbrok, the most famous Viking who ever lived. He will awaken the thirst for vengeance in every warrior from Norway to Denmark. He will unite them under a single cause. They will not come in 15 ships or 50. They will come in hundreds. They will bring not only warriors but settlers, families, smiths, builders. This will be the Great Heathen Army, a massive invasion force designed not to raid and retreat, but to stay permanently. They will conquer entire kingdoms, establish permanent settlements, transform England from Christian land to Viking territory. Ragnar's death will not be the end, but the beginning. His blood spilled in the snake pit will water the seeds of a Norse empire that will last generations. The Saxons who celebrate now will weep for centuries over what they unleashed by killing Ivar's father. The brothers process this vision in silence. Slowly, their expressions change from fury to understanding. Bjorn nods first, then Uber. Even Sigurd, who has always despised Ivar for reasons no one fully understands, recognizes the cruel brilliance of the plan. It is not merely revenge, it is revenge transformed into strategy. It is pain converted into power. It is apparent defeat, hiding future victory greater than any Viking ever dreamed in their most ambitious fantasies. The following weeks are carefully choreographed theater. Ragnar's sons swear peace upon sacred rings in public ceremonies. They release Saxon slaves who return to England telling stories of tamed and repentant Vikings. Eva even sends costly gifts to King Ælla. Precious objects plundered, elsewhere presented as tribute from conquered peoples, acknowledging Saxon supremacy. Every gesture is designed to reinforce the illusion of complete and permanent surrender. Meanwhile, secret messengers travel throughout Scandinavia, visiting every important telling the story of Ragnar Lothbrok, thrown into the snake pit. They describe his slow, agonizing death. They explain how the Saxons laughed while the greatest Norse hero died, poisoned and humiliated. The story spreads like contagious disease. Fury grows in every hall, every village, every Viking heart that hears the terrible tale. Wise begin arriving in Kattegat, first in small groups, then in greater numbers. They bring warriors, ships, provisions. The harbor fills with drawers from every Scandinavian region. Sails bearing different clan symbols flutter in the wind. It is an unprecedented gathering. Ancient enemies stand face to face, united by common purpose. Vengeance for Ragnar Lothbrok transcends all previous disputes and historical rivalries that normally kept these men separate or fighting each other. Ivar calls a war council in Kattegat's Great Hall. More than 50 yards gather under the carved wooden roof. Each represents different territories with their own interests and personal ambitions. Some come for genuine vengeance. Others seek glory and loot. Several simply do not want to be excluded from what promises to be the greatest military expedition in Viking history. The air smells of sweat. The hall falls into absolute silence. Every eye fixes on this impossible figure. A 24-year old man who has never walked yet has conquered more territory than many wise present combined. His reputation precedes him like a shadow larger than his physical body. Rumors say he can read minds, predict battles before they happen, manipulate events as if he were a god playing with pieces on an invisible board. He speaks without preamble or unnecessary diplomatic courtesies. They will conquer and remain as conquerors who transform enemy territories into permanent possessions. Some nod in immediate approval, others frown skeptically. A Jarl named Guam stands. He is a huge man with a red beard reaching his chest. Each Jarl is sovereign in his territory. The idea of subordinating themselves to a single leader contradicts centuries of Nordic tradition based on tribal independence. Ivar expected this question. He does not propose single leadership. He proposes a council of equals where every important Jarl has a voice. Major strategic decisions will be voted on, but on the battlefield, authority will be absolute for whoever commands that day. By will take control. If complex strategy is needed, Ivar will lead. It is a hybrid system that respects Viking pride while maintaining necessary military efficiency. Debate lasts hours. Jarl negotiate, argue, threat, and promise. Some demand specific territories when England falls. Others want guarantees about loot distribution. Several insist on retaining total autonomy over their own warriors. Ivar consts minor points while holding firm to his central vision. He needs this alliance, but not at any cost. If some wise reject his terms, he will continue without them. His determination is so evident, it intimidates even the most stubborn. Finally, they reach consensus. They will form the Great Heathen Army under shared command structure. They commit to 3 continuous years of campaign in England. They will not return to Scandinavia until at least 2 major Saxon kingdoms are conquered. They seal the pact by sacrificing a bull in ancient ritual. The animal's blood soaks the great hall's earth. The owls wet their hands in it and swear upon their sacred rings. The pact is sealed with methods no Viking would break without losing his honor eternally. Preparation takes several full months. Smiths work without rest, forging weapons and armor for thousands of warriors. Shipbuilders repair old vessels and construct new drawers designed to carry not only warriors, but also horses. Months of supplies siege machinery. Women weave new sails and preserve tons of meat and fish. Kattegat transforms into a war machine, operating at full capacity day and night without pause. Ivar personally supervises every detail. He inspects forges, verifying the quality of every sword. He reviews provision inventories, ensuring no ship departs without sufficient food. He interrogates recently captured Saxon slaves, extracting updated information about British defenses. His attention to detail borders on obsessive. Nothing is left to chance. No element is too small for his scrutiny. Perfection is not aspiration. It is the minimum acceptable requirement. His body was thrown into a common grave without ceremony or honors. The Saxons wanted to deny even basic dignity of proper funeral to their most famous enemy. This news ignites the final fury even needed. Warriors who still doubted now demand vengeance. Wise who asked for more time now pressed to depart immediately. The emotional tide is completely turned in Ivar's favor. He no longer needs to convince anyone. The momentum of events now pushes the invasion forward with unstoppable force. All that remains is to set sail and transform England into a massive battlefield that will decide the destiny of future generations. The Great Heathen Army set sail in the spring of 865 AD. They are not 15 ships or 50. They are more than 300 drawers stretched along the sea horizon like a plague of wooden sail. Each ship carries between 30 and 50 fully armed warriors. The most conservative estimates place the invading force at least 10,000 men. It is the largest Viking fleet ever assembled for a unified, coordinated purpose. Ivar travels on the lead ship alongside his brothers. His shield chariot is secured in the central deck. During the crossing, he studies the maps stolen from Lindisfarne years earlier. He memorized every detail long ago, but reviews them constantly, seeking advantages others would miss. His mind functions like the wheels of his chariot, always turning, always moving forward, even when his body remains static. Warriors watch him with a mixture of respect and primitive superstition, difficult to quantify. They land in East Anglia. He is a pious man who prefers diplomacy over war. His coastal defenses are minimal. Local Saxons watch in terror as hundreds of Viking ships fill every available bay. The sky darkens with smoke from campfires stretching miles inland from the invaded coast. Edmund sends emissaries to negotiate. They arrive at the Viking camp with offerings of gold and promises of annual tribute if the invaders simply leave. Ivar receives them seated on his elevated shield chariot like a judge in court. He listens to their offers with impenetrable expression. Then he answers with words the emissaries will carry back to Edmund. "We did not come for gold. We came for land. We will not accept tribute. We will take kingdoms. The king can surrender now or die resisting. Those are the only options available." The emissaries return horrified to Edmund's court. The king summons his counselors to decide the appropriate response. Some argue for immediate surrender to save lives. Others demand resistance to the death. Edmund is a devout Christian who believes in martyrs and final judgment. He decides he cannot deliver his kingdom to pagans without fighting. He gathers his small army of 3-0 men, mostly peasants, with minimal military training. The battle occurs near the village of Thatford, in an open field, with no geographical advantage for either side. He shouts speeches about God and justice. His men respond with weak cheers that sound more like desperation than confidence. They know they are outnumbered 3-1 against experienced professional warriors. Ivar does not personally lead this battle. He leaves that honor to Bjorn, who commands the Viking vanguard. The tactics are direct and brutal. Vikings advance in wedge formation designed to break the Saxon shield wall. The impact is like hammer against glass. The Christian defensive lines shatter in the first 10 minutes. Saxons try to regroup, but panic spreads faster than their commander's orders can travel through disorganized ranks. Edmund fights bravely. He remains in the center of combat, even as his men flee in all directions. He kills several Vikings with his own sword before they disarm and capture him. Norse warriors drag him before Ivar, who watches the battle from a nearby hill. The Saxon king is covered in blood and sweat. His armor bears deep dents, but his gaze maintains defiance even in total defeat. Eva offers simple terms Edmund can live if he acknowledges Viking sovereignty over East Anglia and publicly renounces his Christian faith. He may keep the title of king, but as a pagan vassal, subordinate to the great army, Edmund responds by spitting at Ivar's feet. He prefers to die a Christian than live a traitor to his God. His voice is firm without a tremor. Cities surrender one after another with no significant resistance. Saxons learn that opposition equals annihilation. Submission means survival under new rule. The choice is clear, even if painful. Eva establishes his headquarters in Edmund's former royal residence. Christian halls are stripped of crosses and replaced with North symbols. The great army settles in preparing for the next phase. They will not leave after this victory. East Anglia is only the beginning. Northumbria is the next target, the kingdom where Ragnar died, where King Ælla still rules, believing himself safe behind fortified defenses. The kingdom that will soon learn the true cost of killing the father of Ivar the Boneless. Winter months are used to consolidate control over East Anglia. Vikings do not merely occupy the territory, they administer it. Establish tribute systems, appoint local wise to govern specific regions, build permanent fortifications at strategic points, bring families from Scandinavia to establish settlements. This is not temporary occupation. It is systematic colonization designed to transform England into a permanent extension of the Norse world with all its customs and laws. He interrogates Saxon refugees fleeing north. He studies weather patterns and supply routes. Every detail is analyzed and catalogued in his extraordinary memory. Spring arrives and the Great Heathen Army marches north. 10-0 Viking warriors cross Northumbria's border like a storm of iron and contained fury. They make no attempt to hide their advance. They want Ælla to know they are coming. They want him to feel fear grow each day as the distance between them shrinks inexorably. Psychological terror is as effective as any weapon forged in Scandinavian smithies. Ælla receives daily reports of the invasion. His scouts describe a massive force sweeping everything in its path. Entire villages evacuated, churches burned. Saxons flee toward York, seeking protection behind the capital's walls. Eel summons allies, requesting urgent reinforcements. But other Saxon kings hesitate. East Anglia fell in weeks. No one wants to face the great army without honest guarantees of victory no one can offer. York prepares for siege. Walls are reinforced, granaries filled, wells dug inside the city to secure water for months. Ælla has 5 Izu soldiers defending the capital, respectable numbers, but insufficient against the approaching Viking tide. The king spends sleepless nights walking the walls, watching the horizon, waiting to see the first glint of enemy standards approaching his doomed city. Ivar arrives outside York in mid-spring. He establishes camp beyond arrow range, but close enough for defenders to see the invading force's magnitude. Hundreds of tents stretch across surrounding fields. Bonfires burn day and night. Smoke forms a permanent cloud over the landscape, transformed into military preparation. Saxons on the walls watch in horror, counting ships' tents, warriors until they lose count and hope. But Ivar does not order immediate attack. He waits. Days pass without visible military action. Vikings simply can't eat drink. Saxons inside York grow confused. Why did they not attack? What are they waiting for? Tension becomes more unbearable than any direct battle. Defenders' nerves wear thin, watching the enemy simply exist outside their walls, doing nothing obvious or explainable by traditional military logic. Then I sends a message. He wants to meet Ælla personally without guards, just the two leaders face to face in neutral ground between the armies. Ælla initially refuses, considering it an obvious trap, but Ivar insists, offering guarantees. If I dies during the meeting, Vikings will permanently withdraw from Northumbria. The Saxon king finally accepts, moved by curiosity about what Ragnar's son could possibly want to discuss before the inevitable battle. They meet in an empty field, visible from both armies. Ælla arrives on horseback in full armor. Ivar arrives on his shield chariot, pulled by his 4 loyal bears. Two men study each other in silence. Ælla sees a crippled youth who should not threaten anyone. Ivar sees an old king clinging to power he has already lost without knowing it. The contrast is almost comical, almost. Ælla speaks first. He asks what Ælla wants. The Viking answers with brutal simplicity. He wants Ælla to experience exactly what Ragnar experienced: the snake pit, slow death by poison, public humiliation, denial of honorable burial. Every detail will be meticulously replicated. But first, Ælla will watch his city fall, watch his people enslaved, watch his kingdom disappear from the map. Only then will he die, knowing his entire legacy was systematically destroyed. The Saxon king tries to negotiate, offering gold territories, anything. Ivar interrupts, raising one hand. There is no negotiation possible. This is not about wealth or land. This is about blood debt paid with blood multiplied. Ragnar was one man, but will pay with an entire kingdom. The mathematics are simple. The conversation ends. Both leaders return to their lines, knowing words are finished. Only violence remains. The siege begins at dawn the next day. Vikings build siege towers overnight using wood from nearby forests. Huge battering rams position before main gates. Improvised catapults hurl stones and animal corpses over walls. Bombardment is constant. Saxons respond with arrows and boiling oil. Men die on both sides, but Vikings have numbers and unlimited resources. York has walls and growing desperation. After 3 weeks, defenses begin to collapse. A section of wall gives way under constant bombardment. Vikings flood the breach, howling like wolves. Street fighting is wild and chaotic. House by house, street by street. Saxons fight with desperate bravery, but are exhausted after weeks without proper sleep. Vikings are fresh, constantly rotating troops. The outcome was never in doubt, only the duration. Ælla is captured, attempting to flee through secret tunnels beneath the city. Vikings knew these tunnels. Saxon slaves sold the information days earlier. The king is dragged before Ivar, who watches from his mobile throne, positioned in York's central square. The city burns around him. Screams fill the air, but Ivar has eyes only for the man who killed his father, now kneeling in the mud. The snake pit is constructed in the same public square. It is a deep stone, lined whole. Vikings have collected hundreds of snakes from surrounding fields. Most are not venomous, but Ælla does not know that. Ivar orders him stripped and thrown in. The Saxon king screams as he falls. Snakes writhe around his body. Terror on his face is absolute and childlike. Ivar watches without expression for hours while Ælla suffers. He feels neither pleasure nor satisfaction. He feels completion. A circle closed the debt paid, according to terms set by the original creditor. When Ælla finally dies from bites of the few real vipers mixed among the harmless ones, Evvi simply nods. His father is avenged. Northumbria has fallen. The Great Heathen Army now controls 2 Saxon kingdoms. But Ivar does not celebrate these victories. His mind is already on the next target, Mercia, the central kingdom of England, ruling the richest and most populated lands. King Burgred controls resources that make the already conquered kingdom seem poor. Taking Mercia would mean controlling the economic and strategic heart of all England. Eva's brothers suggest consolidating what has been conquered before expanding further. Bjorn argues they need time to assimilate new territories. Ubi points out warriors are tired after 2 years of continuous campaign. Sig mentions some wise want to return to Scandinavia with their loot. All valid points from a conservative military perspective. Ivar rejects them all with a contemptuous gesture of his left hand. Momentum is everything in a war of conquest. Stopping now would allow remaining Saxons to regroup and strengthen. Burgred would negotiate alliances with Wessex, the most powerful southern kingdom. If they wait, they will face a unified Saxon coalition instead of divided kingdoms fighting alone. They must attack now, while fear still paralyzes their enemies. While Saxons still believe the great army is invincible and unstoppable, like an unleashed force of nature, the invasion of Mercia begins in autumn 867 AD. This time, Burgred has fortified every important city. He has moved supplies to defensible locations. He has hired mercenaries from across Europe. He even has limited military support from Wessex in the form of 500 experienced warriors. Resistance is fierce from the first day. Vikings encounter real opposition for the first time since the campaign began years ago. Battles become brutal and costly. In one engagement near Nottingham, Vikings lose 300 men, taking a Saxon fortress that held only 100 defenders. Ivar's tactics work, but the price in Viking lives rises dramatically. Some wise begin openly questioning whether Mercia is worth the blood being shed. Cracks in the Great Army Alliance start showing like fractures in thinning ice. Ivar responds to these doubts with internal show of force. He calls a war council and declares any Jarl who wishes to withdraw may do so freely, but if they leave, they will never again be welcome in Viking-controlled territories in England. They will be considered cowards and traitors. Their names will be erased from Saros. Their descendants will carry the shame for generations. The social threat proves more effective than any physical one could be. No Jarl withdraws. Viking pride weighs heavier than fear of death. But the mood in camp changes. No more nightly songs or celebrations after victories. Men are exhausted. The war that promised quick glory has become prolonged bloody work. Ivar feels it but cannot show weakness. He must project absolute confidence. Even as internally he calculates how much further he can push his men before they break completely. The decisive battle occurs outside Repton, a city with religious significance for Saxons. Burgred concentrates his entire army here, staking everything on a massive confrontation. 10 zeros, 0 Saxons against 8 zeros, 0 Vikings. Numbers slightly favor defenders, but Ivar holds advantage in experience and morale of professional warriors against mixed soldiers and forcibly recruited peasants. The difference is qualitative more than quantitative. Ivar designs an elaborate trap. He sends Bjorn with 2 zeros, Euro 0 warriors to attack the Saxon lines frontally, a calculated sacrifice. Bjorn knows he will probably lose half his men. He accepts because he trusts Eva has a larger plan. While Saxons concentrate on repelling this frontal attack, Abby leads 3 Suru Vikings in enveloping maneuver through adjacent forests. The same tactic used at Lindisfarne years earlier, but on massive scale. The maneuver works perfectly. Saxons trapped between 2 Viking forces panic. Berg tries to reorganize his lines, but chaos is total. Wessex warriors try to maintain formation, but are swept away by the tide of fleeing Mercia and soldiers. Battle becomes massacre. Vikings pursue Saxons for miles. Corpses mark the retreat path like Macab's signs of absolute defeat. Bergert flees to Wessex with 100 men, abandoning his kingdom. Mercia falls in weeks without its king to organize resistance. He installs a Saxon noble named Ceolwulf as vassal king. Ceolwulf will rule Mercia, but only as administrator following Viking orders, occupation disguised as apparent autonomy. 3 Saxon kingdoms controlled. Only Wessex remains resisting the Viking tide, but Wessex is different. Instead, he fortifies key cities and prepares war of attrition. He builds a network of fortifications called burhs, designed to deny territory to invaders even when they cannot actively defend it. Ivar recognizes in Alfred a genuine intellectual adversary for the first time. All previous kings were predictable. Edmund was idealistic, Al arrogant, Bergerd conventional, but Alfred is adaptable, learns from defeats, changes tactics based on results. He is the kind of enemy Evo would respect if they were not destined to destroy each other. The campaign against Wessex will be different. It will be military chess between 2 exceptional strategic minds. The Great Army marches south in spring 871 AD. Eva leads from his shield chariot, knowing this will be his ultimate test. If he conquers Wessex, England will be completely Viking. If he fails, everything built over 6 years could collapse. Alfred waits behind his prepared defenses. Between them stretches the field where England's fate will be decided through iron blood and unbreakable wills clashing until only one remains standing. The 2 armies meet on a nameless plain. There will be no more ingenious maneuvers or elaborate traps. It will be force against force, will against will, the legless Viking against the Saxon king who refuses to surrender. The silence before battle is absolute. 8 zeros. Euro 0 warriors on each side await the signal. Ivar raises his axe. Alfred draws his sword. The war cry erupts simultaneously from both sides. And the history of England is written with every blow that falls on shields, resounding like thunder in a storm that decides who will inherit these disputed lands.